Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach. On this week's program, we're going to be asking a question that should have been asked a long time ago. Should American Jews retaliate? Should they fight back when there are Jew-hating terrorist attacks? We're going to be discussing the murder of 2 Israeli embassy staff members in Washington, and we're going to be discussing the attack in Boulder, Colorado, the Egyptian Muslim Nazi who threw a firebomb at a group of mostly elderly Jews in Boulder, Colorado. When these Jew-hating terrorist attacks take place, should American Jews retaliate? Should they be fighting back? What should they be doing? That's going to be the question. So this is an important program. But before we get to that, this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, complete recovery for David ben Edna, Ashedina bat Violet, Shlomo ben Sarah, Ruth bat Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, and Ruven ben Shoshana, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Sharon Mitman, Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Seb ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harab Mir Kahana, Rab Benjamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi bat Liba, Yosef ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, Yair Levine, and Rachel D. Well, recently we've had a growing number of anti-Semitic terrorist attacks which show how much Jews in America are in danger now, in physical danger, not just the spiritual destruction that's taking place. We have a spiritual Holocaust that's been taking place in America for many years, where most American Jews aren't even Jewish anymore. They don't want to be Jewish. They're assimilated, they're intermarried, they're self-hating. So American Jews are, in most cases, are a basket case. That's the spiritual Holocaust that's taking place in America. But there's also now a tremendous physical threat that's taking place, growing physical attacks on the Jewish community in the United States. Recently, 2 self-hating Israeli leftist embassy staff were gunned down by a communist Jew-hater in Washington, D.C. This communist lowlife scum Jew-hater gunned them down. And, you know, the interesting thing about this is that these 2 self-hating Jews were working for peace between Israel and so-called Palestinians. There are no Palestinians. There is no Palestine. If you recognize a so-called Palestinian people, that's recognizing something that would lead to Israel's destruction. That's the worst thing Israel could possibly do, is recognize this phony, fake, fabricated people that is a complete distortion of history, that's a complete hoax. But anyway, these 2 self-hating Jews who worked for the Israeli embassy, because you can't get a job in the Israeli embassy unless you're a left-wing self-hating Jew. All the diplomatic circles, all the big establishment institutions in Israel are all run from top to bottom by self-hating Israeli Jews. The majority of Israelis are right-wing, but they can't get jobs. They are oppressed and held down by the elite, the left-wing elite that rules over Israel in the establishment. That's true in the army. The overwhelming majority of Israeli soldiers are right-wing, very right-wing and religious. But the leaders of the top brass in the Israeli army are all leftists, all self-hating scum that are murdering Israeli soldiers with their policies. Scum. And the same thing is true in the universities in Israel, and the same thing is true in the educational system, and the same thing is true in big corporations in Israel, all controlled by the left. Just like the anti-American left in the United States controls the United States. There's an elite that controls most institutions in America as well. But in Israel, it's even worse. So these 2 young employees of the Israeli embassy, both of whom were working on peace projects and trying to bring Jews and Arabs together, which is the most evil thing you could do, trying to bring people who want to exterminate you together so they can fool you with taqiyya. Taqiyya means deception. The Muslims in the Quran are commanded to use deception against the non-Muslim infidels. So they use taqiyya to fool the stupid Jews the imbecilic, stupid Jews into thinking, oh, we want peace. We just want peace. Just give us a Palestinian state and we will have peace. And so these two individuals who were gunned down and murdered, that's what they were devoting their life to. They were devoting their life to bad things. And despite the fact that their lives were dedicated to helping the enemy and appeasing the enemy and bowing down to the enemy and living cowardly, disgraceful lives, despite that, it didn't help in the end. It didn't help in the end. Communist Jew hater from Chicago came and gunned them down and murdered them. Because the Jew haters don't care if you're a leftist or they don't care what you are. They're going to kill you anyway. They hate you because you're a Jew. And if you try to escape your Jewishness, it's not going to help. Most of the Jews who were taken hostage in Israel were left-wing Jews, extreme left-wing Jews that helped the Arabs. They were on kibbutzim near Gaza and moshavim where they helped the Arabs and they defended the Arabs and they voted for all the extreme left parties in Israel that want Israel to commit suicide. They were most of the people taken hostage and most of the people who were killed on October 7th, 2023 were extreme leftists. Didn't help them that they were leftists and that they were showing, oh, we can identify with you, we understand. That didn't help them at all. And that's one incident that took place in Washington, D.C. And then we had another big incident just recently, where Jews in an organization called Run for Their Lives, a stupid organization that tries to pressure Israel and everybody else to only be concerned about the hostages, not winning the war, not destroying Hamas, not destroying our enemies, not throwing the enemies out of Israel so that they can't slaughter all of us, which is what Israel should do. 82% of Israeli Jews favor expelling the Arabs from Gaza. 82% in the latest poll. And this is Haaretz, which is an extreme left newspaper came up with this poll, an extreme left website as well. But despite that, this organization, Run for Their Lives, the only thing they care about is the hostages at any price, at any cost. Just release the hostages. That's all we care about. There are about 20 hostages that are still alive. And of course, I would like to see the hostages released. But it's not more important than saving the lives of thousands and thousands of Jews who are going to be exterminated, who are going to be slaughtered if we give in to this terrorism. And if we release thousands of Arab terrorists, which is the exchange price for the hostages, they're demanding the release of thousands of terrorists. Gilad Shalit was one left-wing, self-hating wimpy Israeli soldier, and he was a real wimp too. And he right away surrendered to the Arabs when they came. He didn't try to fight back. He surrendered like a coward. And he was taken hostage by Hamas. Gilad Shalit. And Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu, the traitor who pretends to be right-wing, but who's really like he's like a contractor for the left. He carries out all the left-wing policies, but in the election he runs like he's right-wing, and then as soon as he gets into office, all of his policies are left-wing policies. Netanyahu freed over 1,000 Muslim Nazi terrorists to get in exchange for Gilad Shalit, for one Israeli soldier who didn't act like a soldier, acted in the worst way possible. And for this one Israeli soldier, Netanyahu, in exchange for that, released over 1,000 of the worst Muslim Nazi terrorist murderers, including Sinwar, who was the leader of Hamas that led the October 7th attack. In fact, all the Hamas leaders that led the October 7th attack were released by Netanyahu to get this one Israeli soldier out. And so we lost 1,200 Jews on October 7th, and then hundreds and hundreds of soldiers have been killed in Gaza now because of in order to get one soldier released, one person released, one hostage released. That's the Netanyahu policies. That's the policies of the left. And now they're demanding that Israel not win the war, that Israel agree to surrender just to get the 20 hostages out, the 20 remaining live hostages. There are 20 hostages that are still believed to be alive, and it may be even fewer than that. Maybe as few as 10. God forbid. I hope, of course, I hope as many as possible are still alive, but it may be as few as 10. And so this organization, this stupid organization, run for their lives. They run or walk for 18 minutes in dozens of cities all around the world, demanding that the hostages be freed at any price. Wonderful. Anyway, and there probably are some Jews in the organization who are not bad people, who are just stupid. Like you have Jews in AIPAC, all the Jews in AIPAC. The Jews in AIPAC are either one of two things. They're either evil, self-hating Jews who support creating a Palestinian terrorist state that would be national suicide for Israel, because that's what AIPAC stands for. So they're either evil, self-hating Jews in AIPAC, or they're stupid Orthodox Jews, and Jews who think they're helping Israel by joining this evil organization, AIPAC. All the Jewish establishment organizations in America, all of them are terrible. They're cowards. They're criminals. They let 6 million Jews die during the Holocaust, and they betray Israel. They're not good for Israel or for Jews. All of them are bad. All the Jewish establishment organizations in America are bad. If you want to help Israel, help J.T.F. and help the Hilltop youth. Now, so what happened? So they had one of these little protests where they're walking in Boulder, Colorado. And an Egyptian Muslim Nazi who's in the country illegally, an illegal alien, Egyptian Muslim Nazi illegal alien, throws huge Molotov cocktails at them. Comes with armed with Molotov cocktails, throws it at them, and the whole, he sets them on fire. He set people on fire, and 12 people were injured. I think as of the time we're doing this program, one of them was still in critical condition. 12 of them were injured. These are mostly elderly people, and so the question is this: when you have this growing wave of terror, of Jew-hating Nazi-style terror being directed against the Jewish community in the United States, should we have something like the Jewish Defense League? The Jewish Defense League, if you recall, defended Jews when they were under attack in the United States in the 60s and the 70s. Should there be another Jewish Defense League? What should we be doing? What's the response? Or should Jews actually retaliate against the terrorists? Retaliate. Well, we're not going to advocate anything illegal on this program. But what we're going to advocate, first of all, what Jews should be doing. Jews should be doing two things: one in the United States and one in regard to Israel. What we should be doing in regard to Israel is much more important than what you do in the United States. Much more important. Because the action is in Israel, not in the United States. Our future will be determined by what happens in Israel, not by what happens in the United States. And so, the first thing, in terms of self-defense, Jews should be armed. Jews should get legal firearms and learn how to use them. They should get legal firearms and join firearms clubs where they learn how to use the firearms. And, of course, there are places like the evil city of New York where I live, where it's almost impossible to get firearms. Almost impossible. This is like living in the Soviet Union, living in New York City. It's a horrible place. In places like Chicago and other places. By the way, all the places where you have gun control laws and they don't respect the Second Amendment, those are the places where the crime and the violence, the murder are the highest. You have the highest rates of murder and crime and violence in all the places where you have gun control laws, where they say we must control the guns, because the only guns they control are legal guns that law-abiding citizens get. The criminals, they get the guns. They have access to guns that on the street. They get the guns by hook or by crook. They don't let gun control laws don't affect them. But the law-abiding citizens can't defend themselves. But anyway, so Jews should oppose all gun control laws and should support the Second Amendment, should defend the Second Amendment. And Jews should learn how to use firearms and join firearms clubs and practice with the firearms and be armed. Jews should be armed. They need to be. If Jews had listened to Jabotinsky in Europe when he said, Jews, learn how to shoot. Jews, get guns, learn how to shoot. The Holocaust, the results of the Holocaust would have been very different if you had 6 million Jews with guns. When the Jews did fight back finally in the Warsaw Ghetto, they held back. Jews can be mighty warriors when they decide to fight back. When they finally decide to fight back, when their backs are against the wall, the Jews are very fierce soldiers. In the Warsaw Ghetto, when they were starving, and there were only like 15, 20, 30,000 Jews left, they fought back against the German army and held the German army back longer than the nation of France. France, which had a bigger standing army than Germany, surrendered right away to the Nazis. They didn't even put up a fight. But in the Warsaw Ghetto held out longer against than France, longer than Poland. Okay, the Poles fought back with horses. They charged with horses and wagons and horses against German tanks. They were slaughtered, of course. But the Jews fought back with homemade bombs and homemade devices. They fought back heroically. And again, the Germans were stunned when they saw this. They said, wow, weapons in the hands of these Jews can make them very dangerous. They were stunned. Jews should learn how to shoot and should acquire firearms. And you should learn also how to physically defend yourself. You should learn boxing and karate and martial arts, any skill that you need. JDL, when I was running the JDL, we used to have classes where we had very, very skillful martial arts experts and experts in boxing teaching Jews how to fight. Jews should know how to defend themselves with their hands, and also should be armed with guns. Guns, legal firearms. That's in America. But more importantly, the way to really strike back, because what are these people protesting? These people are the thing they understand. The Jew haters understand that Israel is where the action is. They want to see Israel destroyed. They want to see the Jews go under. They know that would be the end of the Jewish people. They want Israel destroyed. And so the real way to fight back is, of course, I'll put it as simply as I put it every week. The best way to fight back, support the Jewish heroes that are fighting back and winning in Judea and Samaria, the Hilltop youth. Those are Jews who fight back, who are so brave and so noble and so talented and so idealistic. And what they're doing is nothing short of a miracle. Several thousand Hilltop youth are causing tens of thousands of Arabs to flee and leave the land of Israel. We've got to support them, because the danger of a so-called Palestinian state being created, which would be suicide for Israel, that danger is very, very real. And if the Hilltop youth are not there, and we don't support the Hilltop youth, and we don't get many more, if we don't have as many Jews there as possible, as big a Jewish presence as possible, the danger of a Palestinian state increases. The more Jews you have there, the more Hilltop youth you have, the less chance there is that they can create a Palestinian state. We need facts on the ground. That's what it's called. Uvdot bashetach in Hebrew. Facts on the ground. That's what we need. The Hilltop youth are the only facts on the ground we have. Because all the other Jews just talk about it and write about it and do sermons about it, but don't actually do anything. The Hilltop youth put their lives on the line to protect all of Israel. We have to be there to support them. Here's how you support the heroic Hilltop youth. You go to our Hebrew main page, and on our Hebrew main page, there's a donate button in English on top. You click on the donate button. The Hebrew main page, by the way, is hayamin.org. You go to hayamin.org, and on top there's a donate button in English. Click on it. In several minutes, you can easily and very conveniently donate. And there are two methods of donation on that page. One is recurring monthly donations, which is very, very worthwhile. Everybody should do that. And the other is one-time donations, which is also very, very worthwhile, and everybody should do that. Those are the two things you can do. You can choose between recurring monthly donations or one-time donations, or both. Both is actually the best choice. But whatever you want to do, you can do it easily and conveniently online. That's if you want to do it on the internet. If you want to do it through the regular mail, you just send checks and money orders made out to J.T.F. and you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. You know, there was a terrorist attack in Shomron, which is Samaria. The Arab terrorists murdered a pregnant Israeli woman who was just about to, she was 9 months pregnant. Any day she was going to give birth. The baby was fully formed already in her stomach. She was going to give birth at any moment. And she died in the terrorist attack. And I heard an interview with her husband, the father of the baby, and her husband. And of course, very painful watching the interview. I felt terrible because he was really a good person and a wonderful person. So was his wife. And I listened to the interview, and he talked about how the baby, even after she died, they did get the baby out of her stomach, and they were trying to fight for the life of the baby. They didn't succeed. In the end, the baby passed away as well. But they were trying to fight for the life of the baby. And he said he saw the baby, and he said, suddenly the baby, for the first time, opened his eyes. He said he opened his eyes like an angel, just for a few seconds, and then he died. Now, I want to ask you a question. Judaism says that Jews are supposed to feel the pain of their fellow Jews, as if it's their own. In other words, you're supposed to try to feel the pain of a Jew who's suffering or who's going through something terrible like that. You're supposed to try to feel that pain as if you were going through it yourself. That's what Judaism commands Jews to do. If you could really feel the pain of that father and that husband after what happened to his wife and his baby, if you could really feel that pain, what wouldn't you do? And so we try to give you a chance on this program every week to do what Jews are supposed to do. And yes, we also give that chance to the righteous Gentiles. The reward that righteous Gentiles will get for helping Jews in this situation is a very great reward, of course. Of course. Most Jews are not doing the right thing. So if righteous Gentiles do the right thing for Israel, you can imagine how much God is going to reward that. That's a tremendous reward. And so we give the Jews and the righteous Gentiles an opportunity to do what should be done to make this a better world, to fight for justice and righteousness and truth and idealism. Because that's what's lacking in the world today. Everybody lives for themselves. Everybody in the end does things for their own self-satisfaction. Or sometimes they'll do things just for their family. Their family is very important. You should do things for your family. But you shouldn't care only about your family. You got to care about all good people. And it doesn't mean you can save the world. None of us is big enough or strong enough or powerful enough to save the whole world. But you should do whatever you can do, your part, to make this a better world. That you should do. That's what makes life worth living. And that's what God demands of us. That's what he demands of us in this world, and that's what he's going to ask us about on Yom Hadin. Yom Hadin is the day of judgment. He's going to ask, when you saw injustice, did you do something to rectify it? When you saw people being murdered and people in danger and terrible things being done and monstrous Nazi Muslims and terrorists, when you saw this danger, did you do something to try to make a difference, to try to make the world a better place, to fight against evil and fight for good? Did you try to do something so that the world will be a just place? Those are questions all of us will be asked on Yom Hadin, on the Day of Judgment. And I hope that everyone watching will have good answers on that day. I can tell you that the difference that we've made with this program here, with J.T.F., on the ground in Judea and Samaria has been tremendous. But we've done a lot, but we can do a lot more. And we have to do a lot more, because the whole world is going to gang up on Israel and demand that Israel commit suicide. That God forbid, that day could come any time now. We've got to do everything we can now to stand for what's right and fight for what's right. If we do that, and if we do everything that we're supposed to do, we can change the situation. In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F. until next week, this is Chaim ben Pesach. Shalom.